Alright guys, so I figured I'd do a little quick review here on this 2022 Yamaha MT09. I've got about 8,500 something miles on the bike. I think I bought it with about 1,400, so, you know, 7,000 or so miles in the seat. I've owned it for, I don't know, just under a year. It hasn't been too long. And so I thought I would give you guys some of my kind of general thoughts on how I've been liking this bike and, you know, sort of the things that are good and maybe the things that are not so good about it. So let me get into those. So, you know, the first thing that obviously everybody is going to think about with one of these MT09s is, you know, is the power, right? These engines are known for just being really powerful, really having power everywhere, and that is completely true of this model. The power is accessible, it's wide, it is ample, and it is everywhere. So you can access this power in any part of the entire rev range. There is power absolutely everywhere, and there are absolutely gobs and gobs of torque all over the place, no problem. No problem, just all that power right there. You know, if you're used to, you know, kind of the typical inline four-cylinder feel, I promise you this is going to feel like a huge step up in terms of street riding power. You know, in terms of the overall horsepower it's putting out, you know, it's going to be really comparable to something like a 600cc four-cylinder, but you're definitely going to feel faster on this bike, mainly because of, you know, just how low down that power becomes accessible. I mean, right now I'm sitting at 5,000 in fourth gear, and just I roll on and there's instantaneous power. I didn't have to wait for anything. I don't know why. Oh, he's turning. That's fine. There's no waiting. You know, you can definitely downshift and access more power, but you don't necessarily always have to be downshifting constantly to get the kind of power that you're looking to get out of this machine. But that being said, you know, especially the older models of these, particularly, you know, the original FZ09 that came out in 14, and then the MT09, the second gen, you know, those bikes are known for kind of being wheeling machines and, you know, known for having a ton of power, but they're not really known to be, you know, very good handling bikes. I've ridden one, and I didn't think it was terrible. You know, it's not an atrocious motorcycle by any means. I mean, they're still lightweight, and, you know, the suspension could be worse. It's not the worst I've ever ridden. This bike, however, is not like that. They have made, you know, for the 2021 and up model years, they've made really significant geometry changes. The biggest of which is they have lowered the headstock by 30 millimeters, and then they've compensated for the bar height with these gigantic bar risers. I mean, they're probably 6-inch bar risers on this bike, right? Now, if you get a 24 or newer, they're going to have slightly lower bar risers than on the 21 through 23 models. This bike just has an absolutely terrific chassis. You know, you have a very, very stiff frame, right? It's a very, very lightweight motorcycle. You don't really feel any vagueness in the handling or anything like that. Like, it really is a great chassis, and it's definitely an improvement over the previous gens. So if you're thinking about getting one of these and you might be worried that, oh, well, I'm not sure if it'll handle too great, that is not the case. These bikes handle terrific. This is a base model, and I'll preface any comments here by saying that I have never ridden an SP, but the suspension on the base model is not bad. I would say in terms of the range of adjustment, you know, the rebound damping in the front, even all the way maxed out, isn't quite where I'd like it to be. Maxed out, like, it definitely gets rid of the bounciness, but I feel like it's not as smooth as I would maybe like it to be. But compared to, you know, any beginner level motorcycle and some of the previous bikes I've had, at some point I think I would like to do a fork cartridge in the front and a drop-in shock in the rear. you know, and get it just a little bit better. But I think if you're upgrading from a beginner bike, or if you're not really pushing the bike a whole lot, I really don't think you're going to notice it. Like in the conditions right now, I'm just kind of cruising along on a little highway here. You're never going to notice the difference in suspension under these conditions. I really think you would be truly very hard pressed to notice any kind of serious difference under normal riding conditions. You know, the one thing on these 21 through 23 model years that is different on the SP that you can't get on this is cruise control. I definitely wish I had the cruise control, and that's not really something you can add easily. There is a company that makes an aftermarket cruise control module, but it costs $500, and it's not really quite as clean of a situation as it is with the factory cruise control on the SP. So if you're buying a 21 through 23 and you can find the right used deal on an SP, I would definitely consider it. But I wouldn't stay away from these base bikes either. Like, you know, this is a base 2022, and it really is still satisfactory in many ways, particularly for the price I got it for. I only paid $8,000 for this bike used. So I think it's worth briefly discussing kind of the electronics package on this motorcycle, and it really comes with pretty much everything. I mean, there are a few complaints that I might have, but you've got lean sensitive ABS and traction control. You have that 6-axis IMU that is telling the traction control system exactly where the bike is and what it's doing, which really helps to prevent the traction control from being overly intrusive. Because, you know, it's not just based on wheel speed. It knows if your bike is wheeling, it knows when you're accelerating and decelerating, it knows if you're cornering, it really knows what's going on. And so I find that in mode 1, which is the lowest traction control mode other than off, I find it's not even at all intrusive. Now, if you set it to traction control mode 2, you may notice it being a little intrusive, but that's only if you're really pushing it. If you're really giving it a lot of gas, you might start to notice, that the traction control is occasionally popping in and being bothersome. You also have a manual traction control mode that you can put it in, where you can set lift control, slide control, and spin control each separately, and that sort of allows you to dial in exactly what you want. So for example, in my manual mode, I have it set so lift control is all the way down, and then slide control and spin control are both up pretty high. And that's so, if you want to try and do a little bit of a wheelie, right, you can, do that without the lift control interfering, but you can have the slide control prevent you from, getting into an unwanted slide. Another big factor about this bike, and this is actually one of the largest reasons that I wanted to upgrade over my previous motorcycle, is the quick shifter on this bike. I'm going to do some acceleration. You guys can feel the smoothness of this quick shifter. It's pretty good. There's down again. My tank bag's moving all over the place there. So the quick shifter is good, but it's not perfect, right? In general, I would say I do like this quick shifter a lot. I do think it is a good quick shifter. It is smooth, but it is not smooth in all circumstances. If you're shifting up from first into second, that quick shifter can get pretty clunky. And then if you are downshifting from second into first, that can also result in a clunky downshift. Right now I'm in fourth gear, 5,000 RPM. It really did not want to shift. I mean, I could feel resistance on the shifter. Like, it went and it did it, but it really did not want to go into fifth there. If you're kind of doing a leisurely pace or riding in traffic, I usually do not use the quick shifter. But I do use the quick shifter whenever I am, really having fun with the motorcycle. The bike's also got a slipper clutch, so it does a pretty good job with the downshifts. It's pretty much impossible to lock up the rear wheel on a downshift on this bike, which is really nice. So you can kind of downshift however you want with this motorcycle. One of the things that I really don't like about this motorcycle a whole lot is the brakes. It's not to say that the brakes don't do a good job of stopping the motorcycle, because they do, right? They do a perfectly good job of making the motorcycle go slower, right? But they don't feel very good. The brake feel is a little spongy and a little vague, and it's definitely not confidence inspiring when you are under heavy braking. That being said, it does a good job of getting the bike stopped. It just doesn't feel good on the hand. You know, it doesn't have good feedback. There's kinds of stuff all over the road here. I'll try to avoid some of this shit. So now I want to talk a little bit about kind of the comfort and the tourability of this motorcycle, because, you know, as the naked bikes go, this is probably one of the most comfortable naked bikes in its class, right? You have really, really high bars. I mean, much, much higher than something like Triumph Street Triple. The seat is pretty wide. I wouldn't call the seat comfortable, but it is better than other motorcycles. The foot pegs are adjustable. There are two positions to choose from. I do have them in the higher position just because I do long distances sometimes, but mostly I'm kind of enjoying twisty roads, and so I wanted a slightly more sporty feel. All right, looks like I can go here. I do not like situations like this at all. There is gravel and mud all over this road, and they are blocking it off. That is not confidence inspiring in the slightest. In terms of wind protection, obviously this bike is very naked. Even as naked bikes go, you know, there's essentially no wind protection. You can see I've got this itty bitty little windscreen on it, and that's not even factory. Like, it looks like a factory windscreen, but it's not. With this itty bitty little windscreen, it really doesn't do a whole lot to keep you protected from the wind. Which I think is okay for me, because it gets really hot here in Tennessee, and I like having that extra airflow that I really feel helps to keep me cool. Come wintertime, I'll probably install a taller touring shield on this bike. There's Madstad, and then the other company is Parabellum. I'll probably do the Parabellum just because it's a little cheaper. If you're thinking about picking up one of these MT09s, you know, some things to think about. I personally would not recommend getting a first or second gen unless you're really the type of person that mostly, you know, likes to go in a straight line. Maybe you like to do wheelies, maybe you're doing commuting, that sort of thing. But if you're like me and you really like to hit the twisties, I would definitely stay away from the first and second gen, and I would get a third or fourth gen, which both share the same new engine and chassis. In terms of differences between the third and fourth gen, and again, this being a third gen, on the fourth gen, you're going to get updated ergonomics and updated styling. I think that the fourth gen looks a little better personally. You're going to get those slightly lower handlebars. You're going to get an updated electronics package, right? They added a bigger screen. You know, this screen obviously is really, really tiny. It's borderline postage stamp. So they increased the size of the screen a little bit on the 24 and 25 models. They also improved the quick shifter a little bit. Now, I have not ridden a 25, but one of the things you cannot do on this motorcycle is downshift under acceleration. So right now, I'm giving it gas, I'm maintaining speed. Let's say I want to drop a gear and disappear, I have to roll off the throttle. Whereas on the new 24 and 25 models, you can actually just downshift at any time. I do not know how smooth it is. I have not experienced it, but I will definitely say if it works well, I would consider that a pretty substantial upgrade. And I have looked, there is no way, as far as I'm aware, to get that upgrade on the 21 through 23s. Another big difference between the 21 and 22s is that the base model has cruise control on the 24s and 25s, whereas if you want cruise control on, you know, a 21 through 23, you got to get an SP. So overall, guys, you know, I really do like this motorcycle. You know, like everybody that you've probably ever met with a motorcycle, I definitely have that temptation to constantly want a new bike. But, you know, a lot of times I get on this bike and I just remember, you know, how amazing it is. I mean, it's so confidence inspiring. It works so well. And, you know, there's a lot of different types of riding that you can do with this motorcycle. You know, if you're more into touring, you can get a bigger windscreen. There's a lot of available seat options and a lot of available luggage options. If you're more interested in taking this bike to the track, you can get clip-ons for it. You can get adjustable bar mount. You can get, you know, higher rear set. There's a lot of different options for these motorcycles, and so you can it's kind of a do-it-all bike. So I know these thoughts have been a little bit all over the place, but I really appreciate anybody who's kind of stuck with me to the end here. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you're interested in seeing some more of my content, please like, follow, subscribe, or hit whatever button is associated with whatever platform you happen to be watching this on, and y'all have a really nice day.